Lynchings in America are a poignant symbol of terror. They were used to both punish and instill fear in both enslaved and free black people for what were considered major and at times minor infractions. According to the Equal Justice Initiative, more than 4,000 black people were lynched in America between 1877 and 1950. Mississippi recorded 581 lynchings, the highest of any state. According to police and court records, while lynchings are typically viewed as an act of terror connected to America's racist past, since the year 2000, there have been 8 suspected lynchings of black people in Mississippi. The last death in America can be classified as a lynching occurred in 1981, but there have been numerous accounts of black people found hanging in trees in various states deemed suicides. In many of these cases, the family have vehemently fought the authorities' suicide ruling, but their concerns have often been dismissed. Jill Collin Jefferson, a lawyer and founder of the civil rights organization called Julian, has been investigating the suspected lynchings and has documented the often dismissive pattern of the investigations. She said that each death is immediately treated as suicide, that crime scenes are not preserved, then there's a formal ruling of suicide despite the evidence, and ultimately the case is rarely mentioned again. Here to discuss the dismissive nature of these investigations and present-day lynchings is the director of the Civil Rights Memorial Center at the Southern Poverty Law Center, Tafeni English. So Tafeni, this is a mystery. What do we know about these suspected lynchings, and how, will they be resolved?
You know, Charles, I really wish I could affirmatively answer that question as a yes. And though there are many who over the years and even today attempt to silence the voices and erase the experiences of Black people from public discourse, these modern day lynchings make clear that we in this country have a long way to go before racial inequality is truly a thing of the past. As the director of the Civil Rights Memorial Center and working with Southern Poverty Law Center for a number of years, these modern day lynchings continue to happen. And they're not just happening in the state of Mississippi. And I know that the focus of the investigation is on that, but they continue to happen throughout the entire United States. And in many ways, those who are seeking to silence minority groups, they continue to do what was historically done, as you said in your opening, through tactics such as fear and intimidation. And now today we're seeing these campaigns to eliminate race from classroom discussions and voter suppression. And throughout the years, we've had family members calling us, asking if anything can be done, because as you said, this blanket rule of suicide needs further investigation. I can talk
terror
about.
only works.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that terror really only works if you do it publicly, you take credit for it, people can see, oh, these guys are going to get me if I do this thing or if I cross them in some sort of way. Is there any motivation here that can be discerned in any of these cases? Does anybody ever take any sort of credit, even online, anonymously? It seems like the perpetrator would want some recognition that we have achieved something by doing this.
Yeah, one of the individuals named in the article was James Craig Anderson, who was tragically killed in Jackson, Mississippi. At the time, his perpetrator was 18 years old, who bragged about it. And it was a group of teenagers who actually bragged about it, made reference to Jackson, Mississippi as Jafrica. And so there are instances such as this with James Anderson, a case that Southern Poverty Law Center was involved in, where the assailants were bragging about it and intentionally sought out to terrorize someone who was Black and in a Black community. And it is because of this and other forms of racial terror and oppression um, that the Southern Poverty Law Center continues to step up, confront the injustices, and do all that we can to elevate the voices and concerns of those in the community, specifically when it involves law enforcement and the lack of investigation in these cases.
On a broader note, do you see an uptick in kind of racial violence and terror against Black people recently?
Recently and through the years, what we know about hate crimes is that they continue to be a pervasive problem in the US, specifically as it relates to African Americans. And because reporting crimes to the FBI is purely voluntarily, we don't even have the scope of what those numbers really look like. Because the actual number of crimes across the country is much larger than the FBI statistics indicate. And I think one of the things that was telling, it was a couple of years ago, where when you looked at the hate crime statistics, overwhelmingly Black people are still targeted, and also anti Semitism. And so we're seeing these numbers increase in recent years.
Right. So I have about a minute left, but I just want to ask you this question. Many people argue that the killings, police killings of unarmed Black men, should be classified as lynchings as well. Where do you stand on that?
So Southern Poverty Law Center has not, taken a stance on that. And what I will say is that we do affirmatively feel that police should be held accountable in these instances where our Black and brown men and women are being murdered at the hands of police. So we strongly believe that police should be held accountable in those instances, and we realize that far too many have not reached the level of justice that is required or that is needed to send a strong message to the Black community.
Tafeni English, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your time. Your Black History Moment is next.